Welcome to PBIS in the Classroom. My name is Cheryl Boylan, a specialist in the PBIS department, along with Carla Mingo, who's another specialist in our PBIS department. Today we're here to discuss PBIS in the classroom. Before we get started, we want to talk about building positive relationships in our classrooms. In education, we hear all the time when people say, hey, it's all about the relationships, it's all about the relationships. But when you think about building those relationships, how do I go about doing it? How can I, as an educator, build a relationship with students, getting to know where they're from, who they are, getting to know more about their culture? So today in this section, we're going to talk about culture and relationships. Looking at the remote learning standards, we have a total of 5 here. 1.3a is culture and relationships, structure and expectations, interaction, reinforcement, and correction. So when you look at the standards here, we're not going to go through all 5 standards today. We're going to focus on 2 of the 5, culture and relationships to start out, and structure and expectations. When you look at classroom culture and building those relationships, looking at the standard here is talking about how do we go about intentionally planning and implementing relationships, but not just planning and implementing, how do we maintain those relationships by getting to know our students? When we look at cultivating a positive classroom culture, we can think about our culture to start. Who we are, where we're from, our beliefs and our values, but also how do I include all of my students' views, all of their values and what they believe, thinking about where they're from, who they are, and how can I support that in a learning environment while promoting social and emotional development. So let's look at what is culture. Culture is like the air we breathe. Culture and race are not synonyms. Our culture comes from who, where, why, and by whom we're raised. Culture affects how individuals view the world and how they live in the world. Our students' culture impacts their experience within our schools. Culture is both formed and transformed through communication, verbal and nonverbal. So remember, when we think about culture, it's how you are likely to act, how we respond to different things around us, also how we are likely to be perceived and how others are likely to act. So in any given context or setting or environment, our culture shapes who we are. Here's an article we would like for you guys to explore. And I want you to think about how can I incorporate the science of learning into an online classroom. When you think about cultivating a positive classroom culture, you might say, okay, I hear what you're talking about. I understand what culture is, but how can I go about doing that? So we want you to take a moment to read this article. You can use this QR code here or use this URL link here to access the article, but also think through the lens of how can I incorporate the science of learning into an online classroom.